Wouldn't it be nice if you could read your ex's mind? It would be great to know what they're thinking, what they want, and how they feel about you. Too bad it's impossible. Or is it? While you can't read your ex's mind, I'm going to give you a bunch of indicators that will let you know whether your ex is still thinking about you or not. So if you watch this video to the end, you may not know exactly what your ex is thinking, but you will have a much better idea of what's going on in their head and how they're feeling towards you about the breakup. I'm Dave, and this is the Breakup Corner. We offer you simple advice that you can actually use when it comes to surviving a breakup and getting back together with your ex. If that's something you want, hit that subscribe button for a brand new video every week. Now, I need to begin this video with a disclaimer. The truth is there are a number of factors at play when we're trying to answer the question, is my ex thinking about me? In particular, there are 3 factors that we need to cover briefly. The first is the depth and intensity of your relationship with this ex. So this is just common sense. I know it may have felt serious, but in the grand scheme of things, casually dating on and off for a month isn't a proper relationship that will stick with your ex the way a more serious one would. The same goes for any sort of online relationship where you and your ex only met face-to-face maybe 1 or 2 times. On the other hand, if you've lived together with your ex, spent almost every day together, maybe even had a couple of kids together, that is a completely different story. Simply put, the longer you and your ex were together, and the deeper and more committed your relationship was, the more impact breaking up is going to have on both parties. So if you dated for a week, and then you're probably not on their mind. If you were together 5 years, they'll never truly stop thinking about you entirely because you were enmeshed in their life. It's not exactly rocket science, is it? But you need to be able to realistically evaluate your own relationship and determine exactly how serious it was, because that will impact what is going on in your ex's head. One of the best tools you can use here is xbackquiz.com. It's a free quiz. All you have to do is just answer a few questions to determine the true depth and intensity of your relationship with your ex. If you're in denial, this quiz is very impartial, so it's a great way to find the truth. Again, the quiz is available at xbackquiz.com, and your results will tell you a lot about where you're currently at with your ex, so give it a try after this video. The second is the length of time since the breakup. If your breakup with this ex was more than 2 years ago, then you can probably safely assume that your ex is not thinking about you right now, even if the relationship was serious and long-term. They'll think about you now and then, definitely, but not in a regular, everyday kind of way. On the other hand, if you broke up with your ex within the last month or so, that's a very different ballgame. In most cases, the first month will always be a struggle for your ex, just as much as it is for you. And I can guarantee that you're on your ex's mind constantly. For those who were in a really long-term, serious relationship, your ex will still think of you daily for months after breaking up. See, one of the mistakes a lot of people make is to assume that the pain and heartache they're feeling after the breakup are far worse than whatever their ex is going through at the same time. It doesn't work like that for 99% of breakups, regardless of whether you were dumped out of the blue, whether it was mutual, or whether you are the one initiating the breakup. It's always painful and difficult for both partners. And just because your ex is the one who decided about the initial breakup, it doesn't mean that they're not struggling even more than you are right now. In fact, and a lot of people might be skeptical about this, but I promise it's absolutely true. Sometimes the dumper, or the person who wanted to break up and end things, actually has an even harder time than their partner who was dumped and didn't even have a say in the matter. One of the main reasons for this is because your ex, or the person who decided to break up, knows you'll likely say yes if they change their mind and decide, actually, no, I don't want this. Let's get back together. Simply knowing you can take the easy road and numb the heartache at any time makes it very, very difficult to stick through the decision and to get through the worst part of the post-breakup emotions. If you've seen any of my other videos, you'll know that this is one of the key techniques that I teach: how to maximize your ex's internal struggles and second thoughts to the point where they do indeed break down and beg to have you back. And of course, this only works because both parties go through the same painful recovery process after the breakup. So don't delude yourself into thinking you're the only one crying about this breakup, because your ex is definitely suffering too, and that is going to help you get them back. Number 3 are external factors. When I talk about externalities, I'm typically referring to a rebound relationship or another person in your ex's life. A rebound relationship, if that's actually what it is, doesn't stop your ex from feeling the post-breakup emotions and depression. All it does is change when these emotions are felt. In a traditional rebound, the new person in your ex's life is going to be like a shiny object that distracts them temporarily from the heartache that they're currently enduring. But because most rebounds are based on passion, physical attraction, and a desire to experience something new and different, they usually don't last very long. Once the novelty of this new person wears off and the passion and excitement fizzle out, it's normal for your ex to then realize that they're not compatible anyway and that the relationship has no long-term future. Now, for anyone watching this right now that is in the exact situation that I just described, where you've been apart from your ex for a month or two, and right after the initial breakup, your ex jumped into a rebound relationship that is now coming to an end, or at least starting to fizzle out. You can safely assume that your ex is actually going to be feeling even worse now than they would have if the rebound relationship hadn't happened at all. By jumping into a new relationship right away, they've essentially just deferred the pain and heartache of a breakup until later by distracting themselves. But when later finally does arrive and the rebound ends, your ex has to face the music, and it can often intensify their sadness and loneliness. Why? Well, for starters, they now essentially have gone through 2 breakups, even though the second one was much less significant. But more importantly, as I've mentioned before, humans also have a natural tendency to let go of negative thoughts and memories and fixate or even amplify the positive ones. So unlike right after the breakup, when your ex had all the negative aspects of your relationship on their mind and being apart seemed like the right choice, at this point, your ex will have a harder time remembering all the things that led them to deciding to end your relationship, and be more likely to have begun focusing on the positive aspects that make them miss you and want to get back together. And finally, because this new rebound person isn't likely as compatible with your ex as you were, it often gives them someone to compare you to. And most of the time, that's only going to further crank up the feelings of doubt and regret in the back of your ex's mind, because now they've just had a fresh reminder of how special and rare the connection you shared really was. So what's the verdict on what your ex is thinking if they're still in a rebound relationship right now? Honestly, they're likely distracted by this new person, and they'll be thinking about you sometimes, but not as often as you think of them. But, on the other hand, if this rebound has already ended, then your ex is going to be often in an even worse state of emotional health than you were in the immediate aftermath of your breakup. And I can guarantee you'll be on their mind constantly if this is the case. Now, for the bad news regarding rebound relationships. Not all relationships that begin soon after breaking up are a rebound. Most are, but some are more serious. And perhaps more importantly, sometimes they begin even before the actual breakup has happened. It doesn't have to be an official relationship or involve anything physical initially. It could simply mean that your ex was working closely with someone of the opposite gender on a big project at work in the weeks before you broke up. And as they became closer to this new person and started to imagine themselves as a couple, that's typically when the seeds of the breakup are planted. Having someone new to run off to and quash the post-breakup heartache is often something that can give confidence to anyone who has been wondering for some time whether the relationship that they're in actually has a real future. Add an intriguing new person to this existing doubt about things, and that's often enough for someone to get the courage to break up and run off with this new person that they've been falling for. This is probably the most difficult and painful situation you can face, quite frankly, if your ex has dumped you for someone else. Especially if you've seen signs of this happening long before the breakup and you are aware of this new person in your ex's life. So if you are in this boat, I really am sorry, and I empathize with what you're going through. Sadly, this is only one of the factors. Aside from the two I mentioned earlier, the seriousness and length of your relationship and the amount of time since you broke up, that will likely mean your ex is not thinking about you as much as you're thinking about them. Having a new relationship to walk into immediately after breaking up, especially if it's a pre-planned and your ex has been slowly drifting into this new person's arms even while you were still together, is an effective way to avoid the worst of the heartache that typically affects everyone after a breakup. Now, that's not to say that they're never thinking of you at all anymore, so don't assume you magically just disappeared from your ex's thoughts all of a sudden. It just means that you likely had or have a longer and more difficult recovery to get over them. Also, in this type of situation, they'll usually not think about you that much in the immediate days or weeks after breaking up. The peak of their feelings about missing you and thinking about you will likely come after they've settled into the new relationship, once it becomes less exciting and more routine. Even then, you can expect to pop up in their mind from time to time, but unfortunately, not as often as you might hope. Finally, folks, there's a couple of times when you can be absolutely certain that your ex is thinking about you and missing you like crazy. The first is during the period where your ex really hits rock bottom after the breakup. Depending on how serious your relationship was, this is usually 2 to 4 weeks after you broke up. At this point, your ex, or the person who initiated the breakup, no longer has any feelings of excitement about the prospects of being single. They're also likely less convinced that they made the right decision in breaking up at all. The reality has sunk in by this point. They've felt enough heartache already to be second-guessing their choice to end things, and their friends and family are no longer around 24/7 to keep their mind off the breakup. This is a bad place to be. If your ex is in this phase right now, you can be damn sure they're wishing you were around, and they're thinking about you frequently. The second situation where your ex is almost guaranteed to think about you is when they're living their life out and about, and then they see or hear something that reminds them of you. Usually, it's very specific. A smell that brings you to mind, for example, or seeing an ad for a restaurant you visited together on your first anniversary as a couple, or for the most cliche example, when they hear your song. I imagine most of you watching this right now know exactly the type of situation that I'm talking about, where you think things are fine and you're feeling better, and then bam, out of the blue, you suddenly see or hear something that you can't help but associate with your ex. There's absolutely no question that your ex will experience this type of thing too. And in fact, you both might be feeling it at the same time. Now that's all for today, folks. I hope you've enjoyed learning to read your ex's mind. Just don't use this power for evil. Use it to get them back. Thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing to my channel, and thank you for hitting that like button. I'll see you all in the next video.